September 1944, Camp Hale, Colorado. The early mountain snow dusted the shoulders of Sergeant Pietro Lombardi as he stepped from the mess hall into the crisp alpine air. After 15 months in American captivity, the former cook for Italy's 7th Alpini Regiment had grown accustomed to the routine of preparing meals for fellow prisoners. What he hadn't anticipated was the American captain now standing before him, requesting his presence at headquarters for a special culinary assignment. The Italian surrender on September 8, 1943, had transformed 125,743 Italian soldiers from Axis combatants to co-belligerents, and eventually into what American military documents classified as Italian service units. Prisoners like Lombardi occupied an unusual position, neither fully enemy nor ally, existing in a diplomatic limbo reflected in their treatment. Military records from late 1944 show that approximately 34,000 Italian POWs with specialized skills were reassigned to service roles supporting the Allied advance across Europe. Lombardi, alongside 14 other captured Italian military cooks, had been recently transferred from camps in Texas and Oklahoma to this high-altitude facility in Colorado. Camp Hale, originally built to train American mountain troops at 9,200 feet elevation, had been partially converted to house 400 Italian prisoners with culinary or medical expertise. The U.S. Army Quartermaster Corps documented this unusual concentration of culinary talent, noting that 37% had professional cooking experience before the war. "We expect you to continue cooking, but not for your countrymen," the American captain informed Lombardi through a military interpreter. "You'll be preparing meals for displaced European women requiring temporary accommodation." The deliberately vague phrasing concealed the assignment's true nature, information that would only be revealed during transport to the European theatre. For Italian military cooks, food represented more than sustenance. Unlike their American counterparts who approached military nutrition as a logistical problem solved through standardization, Italian cooks maintained regional culinary traditions even under combat conditions. Captain Antonio Pisani, formerly chief cook for an artillery battalion from Sicily, had maintained detailed notebooks documenting his adaptations of traditional recipes to military circumstances. Records later collected by American intelligence officers seeking to understand Italian morale factors. "With respect, Captain, we require proper ingredients," Pisani stated through the interpreter. "Italian cooking needs olive oil, garlic, proper cheeses." The American officer nodded, sliding forward a typewritten inventory of available supplies that would accompany their deployment. The list included items rarely seen in military kitchens: dried porcini mushrooms, semolina flour, preserved tomatoes, and even small quantities of aged cheeses, specialized ingredients sourced through Allied supply chains from liberated regions of southern Europe. When asked why Italian cooks were being selected for this assignment, American officers provided minimal explanation. Major William Harrison of the Quartermaster Corps later recorded in his administrative assessment that Italian culinary personnel demonstrate superior ability to create nutritionally adequate meals from limited resources, an essential skill for rehabilitation operations. This bureaucratic language masked the complex humanitarian and political calculations behind the decision. What these Italian cooks couldn't anticipate was that their culinary skills would soon position them at an unprecedented intersection of wartime morality. Within weeks, they would find themselves preparing meals not for Allied personnel, but for young German women recovered from what Wehrmacht documents euphemistically called field brothels, women who had served as institutionalized sexual comfort for German troops under varying degrees of coercion. The 15 Italian cooks boarded the military transport aircraft on October 12, 1944, carrying their personal knives wrapped in canvas, unaware that their pots and pans would soon become instruments in one of the war's most unusual humanitarian operations. As the plane lifted over the Rocky Mountains, they could not know that their cooking would soon navigate the complex moral territory between enemy and victim, between military necessity and basic human dignity. May 1942. Occupied France. The administrative order bearing the Reich Eagle letterhead arrived at Wehrmacht headquarters in Paris, establishing what German military bureaucracy termed Sonderbau, special buildings. The seemingly innocuous designation masked the establishment of regulated military brothels, institutions that would eventually number 518 facilities across German-occupied territories by 1944. The order, bearing the classification Oberkommando der Wehrmacht Directive 342, provided precise instructions for operation, hygiene standards, and personnel management of what senior officers euphemistically called morale facilities. German military records, captured intact during Allied advances and later documented by US Army intelligence units, revealed the systematic nature of these operations. Each facility maintained meticulous records, daily visitor counts averaging 60 to 80 soldiers per woman, scheduled medical examinations conducted twice weekly, and detailed accounting ledgers showing payment structures. Women received between 2 and 3 Reichsmarks per visit, with the facility retaining 30% for administrative costs. A typical mid-sized facility housed between 8 and 12 women, overseen by a female matron, usually a former prostitute elevated to management. The demographics of these women revealed complex patterns of recruitment and coercion. According to Red Cross documentation compiled in late 1944, approximately 35% were German nationals, often recruited from civilian prostitution networks in major cities. Another 40% came from occupied territories, France, Belgium, Poland, and the Netherlands, through methods ranging from economic inducement to outright abduction. The remaining 25% comprised women from Eastern territories, primarily Ukraine and Belarus, frequently transferred from labor camps under conditions that offered little genuine choice. Wehrmacht medical files revealed the military's primary concern: controlling venereal disease rather than ensuring consent. Dr. Otto Schneider, Chief Medical Officer for Western Occupied Territories, issued a 27-page protocol requiring prophylactic measures, mandatory treatments, and isolation procedures for infected women. His report noted with clinical detachment that women remained in service an average of 8 months before being replaced due to health deterioration, pregnancy, or psychological collapse. American forces first encountered these facilities during the advance through France in late summer 1944. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Thompson, commanding a medical battalion of the Third Army, documented the discovery of a 14-woman facility near Cherbourg on August 3, 1944. His report described women suffering from severe nutritional deficiency, untreated venereal infections, and psychological trauma consistent with prolonged captivity. The medical examination forms, still present in filing cabinets, showed weights averaging 42 kilograms, approximately 92 pounds, among women whose pre-war documented weights had averaged 58 kilograms. As Allied forces pushed into Germany in early 1945, discoveries accelerated. Military government detachments documented 73 facilities across Western Germany by March, with intelligence estimates projecting at least twice that number in territories not yet captured. The women, now classified as Displaced Persons Category C under military government protocols, presented a complex humanitarian challenge that existing administrative frameworks had not anticipated. Major Margaret Wilson, one of the few female officers assigned to displaced persons operations, wrote in her February 1945 assessment, "These women occupy an undefined space between victim and collaborator that our current regulations cannot adequately address." Her report recommended establishing specialized rehabilitation centers separate from standard DP camps, noting that integration with other female refugees has resulted in ostracism and physical confrontations. The decision to create specialized recovery facilities emerged from a 3-hour meeting at SHAF headquarters on February 17, 1945. General Eisenhower's staff secretary recorded the unusual consensus. These women required medical treatment, nutritional rehabilitation, and psychological support before repatriation determinations can be made. The directive authorized establishing 5 specialized recovery centers in requisitioned hotels and sanitariums, each accommodating between 60 and 100 women. The question of who would staff these facilities remained unresolved until Colonel James Peterson, Chief Quartermaster for the 6th Army Group, made an unexpected suggestion. His memo, dated February 23, 1945, proposed Italian service units with culinary expertise could provide appropriate nutritional support while minimizing security concerns and moral complications. With this administrative decision, the paths of Italian military cooks and German comfort women were set to converge in one of the war's most unusual humanitarian operations. March 1945, Bad Nauheim, Germany. The Grand Spa Hotel's ornate kitchen stood silent as Pietro Lombardi and 4 other Italian cooks were led through swinging doors by American Lieutenant Michael Davidson. The kitchen's copper pots hung untouched since the hotel's requisition by American forces. "This is where you'll be working," the lieutenant explained through Corporal Rossi, their interpreter. "Your job is to prepare 3 meals daily for 68 women recovering in this facility." The lieutenant paused, then added with measured words, "These women served in German military brothels, some voluntarily, many not." The silence following this revelation was broken only by the sound of Chef Antonio Pisani placing his knife roll on the steel prep table. Military records show that the initial briefing lasted exactly 47 minutes, during which the Italians were informed of their unusual assignment. "These women need nutrition and dignity," the lieutenant continued. "Many are severely malnourished, weighing less than 45 kilograms. Your cooking may be their path back to health." Sergeant Lombardi later recalled this moment in a 1978 interview. "We were soldiers, then prisoners, now cooks for women who had suffered unimaginably. What could we say? We simply nodded and asked what supplies we would receive. The answer came in the form of a typed inventory sheet listing weekly rations: 110 kilograms of flour, 75 kilograms of potatoes, 40 kilograms of rice, 20 liters of olive oil, 25 kilograms of dried beans, limited fresh vegetables, powdered eggs, canned meat, and American military chocolate rations. Language created immediate barriers. The Italian cooks spoke minimal German. The German women no Italian, with American personnel offering limited translation through a medical orderly who had studied both languages before the war. Captain Maria Rossi, an American nurse overseeing the women's medical care, devised a pragmatic system: a chalkboard in the dining room where meals could be described through simple drawings and basic vocabulary in multiple languages. The first menu planning session revealed cultural divides deeper than language. "These women need familiar food," insisted Chef Guido Ferraro, who had cooked in Milan's finest restaurants before the war. "German food, sausages, cabbage, heavy bread." Chef Lombardi disagreed. "Their bodies need healing that comes from our Mediterranean traditions: vegetables, olive oil, herbs that restore." The compromise emerged in a hybrid approach: breakfast following German customs, lunch introducing Italian elements, dinner blending both traditions. The first meal, served on March 12, 1945, was documented in the facility's daily report. Semolina porridge with powdered milk, supplemented with fruit compote made from American canned peaches. Coffee substitute with actual sugar, first time many patients have received sweetener in months. Several women wept at the sight of white bread rolls. The report noted that average consumption was 37% higher than medical staff had anticipated, with many women requesting second portions. Kitchen equipment presented unexpected challenges. The hotel's German appliances operated differently from Italian or American equivalents, requiring adaptation. Chef Lombardi improvised a pasta-making station using a modified laundry table covered with canvas sheeting for rolling dough. Without proper cheese, Chef Pisani created a substitute using powdered milk, butter rations, and a vinegar. A pale approximation of ricotta, that nevertheless provided needed protein and calcium. Ingredient limitations forced creative solutions. American supply sergeants, initially skeptical of special treatment for German women, became unexpected allies after visiting the facility. Supply records show increasing allocations. Herb seeds for a small kitchen garden planted in April 1945, additional olive oil diverted from shipments bound for officers' messes, even occasional deliveries of real coffee beans, items bearing the notation humanitarian medical necessity in quartermaster logs. The women's recovery became measurable through food. Facility records tracked average weight gain of 0.8 kilograms weekly during the first month. More telling were behavioral changes, increased willingness to leave rooms for meals, first conversations between patients occurring over shared tables, the appearance of occasional smiles. Dr. Helen Matthews, staff psychologist, noted in her April assessment, "Food has become more than nutrition. It represents safety, care, and return to civilized existence." By late April 1945, the 5 Italian cooks had established routines, serving 3 daily meals, plus afternoon tea service suggested by British medical personnel who occasionally consulted at the facility. The kitchen had become a center of healing through an unexpected culinary diplomacy, connecting former enemies through the universal language of food, prepared with evident care and emerging respect. May 1945, Bad Nauheim, Germany. The kitchen's swinging door opened as Helga Müller hesitantly entered, holding a handwritten recipe card. 2 months earlier, she wouldn't have dared approach the Italian cooks. Now she stood before Chef Lombardi, explaining through fragmented phrases and gestures how her grandmother had prepared potato dumplings in Bavaria. The chef nodded, taking the card with a smile that bridged their limited shared vocabulary. By evening, a new dish appeared on the menu, Italian gnocchi prepared with German seasoning. The women in the dining room recognized the transformation of their homeland comfort food through Italian techniques, a culinary diplomacy that spoke volumes without words. Facility records documented this evolving food dialogue through detailed menu logs. The April 15th entry noted, breakfast attendance increased to 97% of ambulatory patients. Italian cooks have modified breakfast bread, creating softer rolls using olive oil rather than standard military white bread. German women have begun requesting specific Italian dishes observed at other tables, particularly pasta with vegetable sauces. Medical staff noted corresponding improvements in patient weight charts, with average gains of 1.2 kilograms weekly by mid-May, exceeding nutritional targets by 40%. Behind the serving line, unprecedented collaborations emerged. Chef Guido Ferraro, who had initially insisted on maintaining rigid Italian culinary traditions, discovered unexpected synergies with German ingredients. His notebook, preserved in military archives, recorded experiments combining Italian risotto techniques with German spelt grains when rice supplies ran low. The resulting dish, dubbed speltotto in kitchen slang, became so popular that American supply officers received requests from other military facilities for the preparation instructions. The transformation of basic rations required remarkable ingenuity. American Supply Sergeant William Henderson documented in his weekly inventory reports how Italian cooks stretched limited provisions. 10-in-1 ration canned meat, 72 cans weekly, transformed through slow braising with herbs grown in window boxes. Standard Army dehydrated potatoes reconstituted with milk powder, butter and garlic to create passable side dishes. Chocolate rations from K rations melted with powdered milk and limited sugar to make rudimentary dessert mousse. As spring progressed, American soldiers began making unofficial contributions. Private James Wilson, who drove supply trucks between Frankfurt and Bad Nauheim, regularly arrived with misplaced items. Fresh eggs from rural farms, vegetables purchased with cigarette rations, occasionally even wine that mysteriously disappeared from officers' requisitions. When questioned by his commanding officer about these irregular deliveries, Wilson reportedly answered, "Sir, My mother taught me never to arrive anywhere without bringing something for the kitchen. The dining room itself evolved from institutional feeding center to communal gathering place. Physical changes were documented in facility reports. Tablecloths appeared in late April, fashioned from repurposed hospital sheets. Wildflowers in simple vases, collected by recovering women during supervised garden walks, adorned tables by early May. Most significantly, seating arrangements shifted from assigned places to voluntary groupings, with women increasingly choosing to share meals with new acquaintances rather than remaining isolated. Cultural exchange flowed in multiple directions. Nurse Maria Schmidt's personal diary, later donated to the Army Medical Corps Historical Collection, recorded, "Watched remarkable scene today. Italian chef teaching 3 German women to make pasta by hand while they taught him traditional dumpling technique. Languages mixed in beautiful confusion, hands demonstrating what words couldn't express." More healing happened in that kitchen this afternoon than in all our medical treatments combined. The nutritional impact became measurable through medical assessments. Chief Medical Officer Captain Thomas Reynolds documented in his May 30th report, patient vitamin deficiencies showing marked improvement, anemia reduced by estimated 60% across patient population, skin conditions clearing. Most significantly, psychological assessments show 72% reduction in reported depression symptoms among patients participating in communal meals versus those still taking food in rooms. By June 1945, the kitchen at Bad Nauheim had developed a regular cycle of menus balancing nutritional science with cultural comfort. Morning meals featured German-style breads with Italian olive oil and herbs. Midday brought soups combining German vegetables with Italian preparation techniques. Evening meals offered pasta 3 times weekly, alternating with German-inspired dishes prepared with Mediterranean influences. This culinary hybrid averaged 2,200 calories daily per patient, with balanced proportions of protein, 17%, fats, 25%, and carbohydrates, 58%, that exceeded standard military nutritional guidelines. When American journalist Martha Gellhorn visited the facility in late June, she observed the dining room during the evening meal. Her unpublished notes described, "Women who arrived as shadows now converse over shared food. Italian men who arrived as prisoners now serve as respected providers. Between them passes more than sustenance. I observed the quiet restoration of human dignity, served one careful plate at a time." July 1945. Bad Nauheim, Germany. Father Thomas Riley, a Catholic chaplain assigned to the American occupation forces, stood silent in the doorway of the facility kitchen. Chef Lombardi knelt in prayer before beginning the day's work, a ritual the priest had observed for 3 consecutive mornings. When the chef finally rose and noticed him, Father Riley posed the question that had brought him here. "How do you reconcile serving those who were with the enemy?" The chef's response, recorded in the chaplain's journal, revealed the moral complexities that permeated the unusual arrangement. "Father, in my village, we believe how you treat the broken reveals more than how you treat the powerful. These women, they are not my enemy. They are broken, like pieces of Italy herself." This moral navigation appeared repeatedly in confidential reports compiled by military government authorities. Captain Elizabeth Williams, a Women's Army Corps officer conducting inspection visits, noted in her July assessment, interviewed 14 Italian kitchen personnel across 3 rehabilitation facilities, asked directly about ethical concerns serving German women previously associated with Wehrmacht brothels. Consistent response pattern. Initial hesitation transformed through direct contact with visibly traumatized patients. Staff universally reframed mission as humanitarian rather than political. Several explicitly referenced Catholic teachings on mercy and forgiveness. The German women's perspective emerged in group therapy sessions documented by facility psychologists. Patient number 217, identified only as Greta, age 23, expressed confusion during recorded treatment on July 17th. "Why do they treat us with such care? German men put them in prison camps, yet they prepare our food as if for honored guests. I don't understand. Another patient responded, perhaps they see we were prisoners too, just behind different kinds of walls. Medical staff noted that these conversations represented significant psychological processing of wartime moral categories. Hierarchies of victimhood complicated rehabilitation efforts. Military Government Directive 45545, issued June 12, established 5 classification categories for displaced persons requiring assistance. German women from military brothels occupied an ambiguous position between Category 3, persons in Allied custody requiring protective care, and Category 4, former enemy personnel requiring supervision. This administrative uncertainty manifested in practical ways. These women received Red Cross packages averaging 2,100 calories daily, compared to 2,800 for recognized victims and 1,600 for former enemy personnel. Their unique status was perhaps best captured by a handwritten notation on supply requisition forms. Special humanitarian consideration, authorized pending final status determination. Religious dimensions added further complexity. Nearly 70% of the Italian kitchen staff identified as practicing Catholics, according to personnel records. Many attended weekly confession with Father Riley, who later reported recurring moral questions regarding service to women associated with sexual activity outside marriage. The priest's guidance, preserved in correspondence with his diocese, advised, I remind them of Christ washing the feet of sinners and suggest their cooking represents similar humble service to those society would reject. This religious framing provided crucial moral framework for Italian personnel navigating complicated ethical terrain. Gender dynamics evolved in unexpected ways. Initial military government protocols had specified minimal contact between male kitchen staff and female patients. By August 1945, observational reports noted remarkable shifts. Professional boundaries maintained while normal human interactions increasingly evident. Italian cooks now greet patients by name, inquire about health, occasionally accept feedback on menu preferences. Patients increasingly view kitchen staff as caregivers rather than foreign military personnel. This normalization represented significant progress in women's psychological recovery, according to staff evaluations. American military policy regarding these facilities underwent continuous revision. Original Directive 33745 in March emphasized security, with armed guards and restricted movement. By August, updated guidelines reduced security measures while expanding rehabilitation services. Colonel Richard Patterson, Medical Corps, noted in a policy review, the Italian culinary program has demonstrated unexpected effectiveness as therapeutic intervention. Recommend expansion to additional recovery facilities based on documented improvements in patient well-being. His recommendation was approved, with 5 additional facilities established by September 1945. Personal transformations appeared in individual case files. Patient number U142, admitted in March weighing 43 kilograms with severe malnutrition, wrote in her recovery journal by August, Today Chef Pisani taught me to make proper coffee when real beans are available. Such a small thing, yet I felt human again, learning something ordinary people do in ordinary times. This sentiment echoed across patient records, the return to mundane activities, particularly food preparation and communal dining, marked crucial steps towards psychological recovery. Throughout this unusual arrangement, food continued serving as the primary bridge between divided worlds. When fresh tomatoes became available in August, Chef Lombardi prepared a simple sauce that a German patient recognized. My mother made this exactly the same way. How is this possible? The chef explained that some culinary traditions transcended borders. This revelation, that former enemies shared fundamental cultural touchstones, appeared repeatedly in patient journals and staff reports, each instance representing another small fracture in the barriers of hostility erected by years of propaganda and war. December 1945. Frankfurt, Germany. The repatriation processing center hummed with administrative efficiency as clerks processed papers for the remaining displaced persons from Bad Nauheim. Among them stood Helga Müller, now weighing 62 kilograms, a restoration of 21 kilograms since her arrival 9 months earlier. She clutched a handwritten recipe book, its pages filled with Italian cooking instructions translated into careful German script. Across the room, Chef Pietro Lombardi awaited transport to Naples. His status changed from prisoner to Allied personnel awaiting repatriation. Their final conversation occurred through an interpreter. "What will you do with the recipes?" Lombardi asked. "Teach others," she replied. "Something good should survive from these years." The administrative record of this unusual wartime intersection remained deliberately obscured in official reports. Military Government Directive 55345, dated November 10th, ordered expedited processing of all Category C special cases. Bureaucratic language for the women from German military brothels. By February 1946, the specialized rehabilitation facilities had been closed, their records transferred to sealed medical archives with restricted access. Of the 1,137 women who passed through these facilities, repatriation data shows 64% returned to German addresses, 22% emigrated to other European countries, 8% married American personnel, and 6% remained unaccounted for in final reports. The Italian military cooks followed different paths. Repatriation records show that of the original 87 Italian culinary personnel assigned to women's rehabilitation centers, 76% returned to Italy by early 1946. The remaining individuals accepted positions with occupation authorities or Allied military facilities. Chef Antonio Pisani's personnel file notes his transfer to the officers' mess at SHAF headquarters in Frankfurt, where his monthly salary of $150 exceeded his pre-war earnings at Milan's finest restaurant by approximately 300%. His official recommendation letter mentioned only exceptional culinary skills, with no reference to his previous humanitarian assignment. The post-war silence surrounding this program reflected broader societal reluctance to acknowledge complex moral categories. Dr. Margaret Wilson, who had supervised 2 rehabilitation facilities, noted in her unpublished 1952 memoir, "The women we treated occupied an uncomfortable position between victim and participant in Nazi systems. Similarly, the Italian cooks existed between enemy and ally status. These ambiguities made their stories unwelcome in a post-war narrative that preferred clearer moral distinctions." Historical recovery of this episode began only in the 1970s, when German sociologist Dr. Elsa Hoffmann conducted interviews with 23 surviving women who had passed through the rehabilitation facilities. Her research, published in 1978 as Healing Through Kitchens, Unconventional Recovery Programs 1945-1946, first documented the central role Italian military cooks played in the women's psychological rehabilitation. Her work faced significant academic resistance, with 3 publishers rejecting the manuscript before its eventual publication by a small university press. First-person testimonies from both sides emerged gradually through decades of silence. In 1982, former chef Guido Ferraro, then operating a successful restaurant in Turin, gave his only interview about the experience to an Italian culinary magazine. "We entered as prisoners expected to cook. We departed as humans who had helped other humans recover their dignity. What happened in those kitchens taught me that food can rebuild what war destroys." The article received limited attention, filed among recipes rather than historical accounts. The lasting impact emerged in unexpected places. When Helga Müller opened a small cafe in Munich in 1958, its menu featured what she called healing cuisine, German dishes with Italian influences that traced directly to the rehabilitation facility kitchens. Her establishment became a gathering place for women with similar wartime experiences, though this connection remained unspoken to customers. Military historian, Dr. MP Robert Thompson discovered this connection while researching displaced persons programs in 1990, noting, These women created informal support networks disguised as culinary establishments, continuing therapeutic practices first developed by Italian military cooks. Contemporary significance of this historical episode has grown as humanitarian practitioners recognize the therapeutic potential of culinary programs. The International Committee of the Red Cross incorporated specific recommendations based on the 1945 rehabilitation model into their 2010 guidelines for post-conflict trauma recovery programs, noting the historical precedent established through Italian-German culinary cooperation demonstrates the profound psychological benefits of food preparation as therapeutic intervention. Cultural reconciliation continued through unexpected channels. In 2005, a culinary festival in Verona, Italy featured joint demonstrations by elderly Italian and German chefs who revealed their connection to the 1945 rehabilitation program. The event's organizer noted that several recipes demonstrated could be traced directly to improvised dishes created in the Bad Nauheim kitchen 60 years earlier, representing the enduring legacy of humanity discovered through shared meals. This unusual wartime intersection, Italian prisoners cooking for German women, ultimately offers a universal reflection on human dignity's persistence through culinary connection. As former nurse Maria Schmidt wrote in her 1989 memoir, "I witnessed enemies becoming healers through the simple act of preparing food with care. The kitchen became neutral territory where humanity reasserted itself against ideology's divisions. Perhaps no greater victory occurred in that terrible war than the quiet triumph of compassion I observed daily in those mess halls, where broken people from opposing sides healed one another one careful meal at a time."